to another day on the program, and a lot happening here as we have reached Wednesday. We continue to follow the college football rankings, although there really wasn't much to follow last night. Let's get to some headlines making the news. And LSU at the top again. Will they remain? Well, this is what we saw last night. Bama continued being attacked around the country, but if you compare the numbers, they're actually in better shape than Oregon and Utah. And that's why they're ranked higher. Meanwhile, Michael Divinity is not eligible until the national championship game. That's optimism there, isn't it? He is back on the team. Still not exactly sure what's been going on down there, but it won't matter because he won't be able to play until January 12th. Meanwhile, Nick Saban wants Mac Jones to be the lead dog. Okay. We'll find out pretty quickly. A guy against Western Carolina. I bet he can be the lead dog against Western Carolina. Anyway, welcome to the program. We're here for the next couple of hours, and we hope you will be as well. Our phone number is 855-242-7285. A number of guests will be dropping by today. Ed Ashoff, Brody Miller, Bill Hancock. Mark that one down. And we'll talk about likeness with the West Coast Conference Commissioner. Name and likeness, I should say. Likeness is not completely the story. Well, anyway, a lot to talk about today. Last night, the rankings came out. Not much change. LSU, Georgia, and Alabama remain the same up here in New York all day. Many were beginning to throw dirt on Alabama's national championship hopes. Many in the media simply writing them off, saying they have virtually no chance to make it to the playoffs. Although if you look between the lines, they do have a shot. How good a one, we don't know. Anyway, let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285. And we start with Grayson in South Carolina. Hello, Grayson.
Hey, Phil. How's it going?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I just called in to ask what you think is going to happen with Muschamp.
You better ask your president and your athletic director. They're the ones who are issuing statements every day.
I don't think we're going to go for the buyout, but I'm personally not super against him getting fired because I was just wondering if he gets fired, who do you think is the best option to get hired?
Well, listen, there's no way of knowing that, Grayson, and I don't mean to be snippety about it, but I mean you got a president and the athletic director who continue to issue conflicting statements. It's obvious that they're not on the same page. And, whether that means Will Muschamp has any shot at losing his job or not, I don't know. I mean, it's an $18 million buyout, and, the fans are disgruntled. It seems like there's chaos in the administration. I mean, right now, to get rid of Muschamp and to start a coaching search when you're really not sure what end is up is probably a futile situation. Glad to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Let's talk to Jason in New York. Hello, Jason.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I know Florida's shot at the playoff is quite a long shot, but just a quick scenario I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let's see. Oregon loses to Arizona State, but wins the Pac-12 title over Utah. Baylor, I know you think Big 12 has a long shot, so Baylor wins out, including beating Oklahoma in the title game. Alabama loses the Iron Bowl. Georgia loses to Texas A&M and LSU. And Penn State, Minnesota each take another loss. If you had 10-2 Penn State, 12-1 Baylor, 11-2 Oregon, and 10-2 Florida, who do you think would get that fourth spot potentially?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've just given me something that's almost impossible to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you're talking about how many different variables there?
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me make it simple for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Florida's not going to the college football playoff.
All right. right.
I think that's the simplest way, Jason, to.
Yep.
I mean, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but
No, that's all right.
there's no way all those things are going to happen. And even if they do, I still think we're looking at there are just so few. There are probably no more than 4 schools remaining for that final spot. Glad to hear from you, though. Great to have you on. Let's talk to Christian in Florida. Hello, Christian.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to. I know there's been so much talk lately about Alabama and their playoff chances. Obviously, they need a lot of chaos to happen, And basically, to sum it all up, I guess teams just need to start losing. And in my opinion, by the way, thoughts and prayers go out to Tua. Sorry that we lost him, but I mentioned this. I think the last time I called. Have faith in Mac Jones and all that. And if he could put up some Tua numbers, that might impress the committee. And, I was just fixing to say it starts this weekend. I think if Penn State somehow can beat Ohio State, they would fall from the top 4, and maybe Alabama, if they can get a good win this weekend, could probably move up. What do you think?
Thanks for the call, Christian. Listen, I think Alabama needs help. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Where Alabama is going to lose to the Pac-12, and whether they should or not, is with the conference championship game. But if the Pac-12 teams lose this weekend, but they're both in Arizona, I think Oregon has a more difficult game. Then things can start happening. But listen. I remember a couple, 7 or 8, 9 years ago, whenever 2011, Alabama lost to LSU and virtually had no shot. And then about 4 things happened over the next 2 weekends. Same thing happened in 12 when they lost to Texas A&M. It is not impossible. It's also not very likely. Chuck is up next. Hey, Chuck.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing? You remember me?
Of course, you're the odds maker, Chuck.
If you remember, I made the LSU-Alabama spread pick'em, and it's
Great.
something I won't do again. I will not make a big prediction like that again. I'm quitting while I'm ahead.
Okay.
I think LSU is one of the best teams in the country. I can't guarantee that they're going to win the national championship. But, it's a possibility, and I pulled a huge upset, and I just wanted to let you know.
Well, Chuck, I'm heartwarmed to know that. Dave is up next in Baton Rouge. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Paul. It's been a while since we spoke.
Great to have you back, Dave.
Hey, let the Tigers beat Alabama at home. But, Paul, it's hard to be friends with you. I was watching Get Up this morning, and I swear, did you go to work for the Big Ten Conference?
Dave, no, listen, I don't know how to break this to you, but my job when I'm on programs is to give my opinion, not to carry the water for the SEC.
Well, see, that's where I kind of disagree with you, and especially with LSU.
I tell you what, Dave, I'll be more than happy to forward my contract to you. It stipulates on the first line that my agreement is with ESPN.
Not with LSU fans?
No. Excuse me. Let me amend that. It's with ESPN and Alabama fans.
Well, I knew that. That ain't no surprise. I'm just trying to get the Tigers some equal.
But what you don't understand, though,
it was like you were happy that Ohio State.
When I state an opinion that I think LSU and Ohio State are among the top teams in the country, but I think LSU is not as complete as Ohio State. That's an opinion. That's not me hating on LSU. That's offering. I'm educated or not. I mean, I'm just another guy like you are. But I try very hard, and I know I don't get credit for this, but just fine. I've never asked for anybody to give me credit for anything. I try to give an honest opinion. And
Paul,
you know,
look, I'm just giving you a hard time today. I think
but a lot of people
great.
don't understand that, though, Dave. They really
I
think
know.
that. But do you know?
I was cussing you this morning. I swear.
But do you know why I have a problem when I give my opinion? Because there are so many sycophants in the media, some working right here, that when someone does give an honest opinion, it is misinterpreted by fans. I understand all that. I've worked in local radio and television and newspapers my entire life. I may not act like I'm aware, but I'm pretty aware of how fans.
If Alabama weren't Alabama, they would be where I've put them. But Alabama, because they're the brand, will be in the 5th position probably until they lose to Auburn, if they lose to Auburn. I don't see Alabama moving at all. And I know you had your data guy, your metrics guy on earlier today, and I know they've created a lot of jobs with this new college football playoff who's in thing up in Bristol. But when I start hearing this or that team has this lower percentage of chance of getting in or this higher percentage chance of getting in, Paul, from my vantage point, that just allows for the committee to continue to play the brand game, and it also allows much of the media to say, why should I care about Utah and Oregon? They have a 0.87% chance of getting in if they win out. Therefore, I don't have to care. It promotes laziness in the media. That's what it does. Albeit with a different set of circumstances and an offense and a quarterback like LSU's now that could probably be in a better position. But again, the rest of the country is going to go, really? We got to see that again? We got to see Alabama and LSU again? Oh, by the way, I believe at that time, Paul, Bill Hancock wouldn't even let us use the word playoff until that game happened. Then all of a sudden his office became named the playoff office. So that's what we're looking at, and that's why the branding matters and pure playoff privilege and all of that. The loss of Tua Tagovailoa, a lot of people were suggesting automatically. I mean, as soon as the game was over, oh, they're done. That's it. What? Huh? Are you kidding me? No way. This only enhances the Alabama narrative if they can go and boat race Auburn at Auburn, puts them in a great position. And if LSU does what it's supposed to do and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, Alabama, in my opinion, will be in. They will absolutely be in. And the rest of the country, too bad. Here we go again. Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State would be your other team, another one of the playoff privileged, who, by the way, got in without having to win its Big Ten championship one year, much to the chagrin of Penn State. So they fall into that category as well. Brand names, Paul, all about branding. And Alabama is the poster child for the pure playoff privilege, no doubt about it. Georgia's one of them, too. Georgia lost to a third-string quarterback at home, and it didn't matter.
Welcome back. We are live in New York today. Glad you're here. We'll be in Athens on Friday. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Bill is in South Carolina. Hello, Bill.
Paul, it's great to talk to you, man. Never had first-time caller, but, man, I've listened to you. Appreciate how blunt you are, and I'm getting ready to probably get some of it myself here because it's probably deserved. Two things quickly, if I can, Paul. There's a no bigger South. I'm sure there's many of them equal to, but no bigger Gamecock fan than I am. And, man, I'm just we have a baseball program that has the best baseball coach in America, and he gives it up to be an athletic director, an inexperienced athletic director, and now we're literally looking like a dumpster fire down there. I just want your overall thoughts on the whole thing because we went through some great years with Spurrier, and now it just appears to be a mess, man.
I think it's embarrassing. And you asked me for an opinion, I'll give it.
I do.
And listen, Ray Tanner is the athletic director. He is in charge of the program. And, when athletic directors come out and give these, we're all in it for the head coach, and he's my head coach, and he's going to be here for a lot. I mean, you lose credibility. I had a conversation with an AD a couple weeks ago, and he did the same thing, and I found him to be disingenuous. And listen, I know Ray very well. I think he's a competent athletic director who may be just too much of a coach sometimes to be an administrator. And now he's got a new president. And I really, listen, I'm a journalist. When somebody makes a statement and then they walk it back, it tells me that there was a lot of blowback. And when the president had to walk back the statement that Ray Tanner had consulted with FSU about a buyout, I didn't believe the walk back. I believed the first time around. And I mean, who do these people in South Carolina think they're kidding? I mean, they have a fan base that deserves an honest appraisal, not a bunch of BS.
Buddy, I agree with you completely. I mean, no one has any better facilities. I mean, we have got it all. Just seems to be a mess. One other quick thing, and I'll let somebody else answer it, but since I finally got you and love your opinion. The other, of course, being a South Carolina Gamecock fan also, creates a little issue on the Tiger fan base. And a question I got about Clemson, and I know you'll be objective with it, is the part I don't understand with this, Paul, is that, the issue with Central Florida forever was the fact they never played anybody. And we're getting ready to have a team that's going to be in the college football playoff that never played, when it's all said and done, including the ACC championship, will have never played a ranked team.
No, you're right.
I just want your thoughts on that.
Well, Bill, I think it's absurd, but it's a system we have. And I think thanks for the call. Really, if Clemson was not the reigning national champion, there would be more hue and cry. But, I mean, they played, let's see, Texas A&M would right now be about maybe the seventh best team in the SEC. South Carolina would be maybe the 11th best team in the SEC. Those are probably their two best games. Let's talk to Ed Aschoff, who's in Columbus, Ohio right now. Ed, before we get to the college football playoff, let's look ahead to the next couple of weeks for the Buckeyes. I mean, it seems like the whole season is in front of them. You can argue they don't have a lot of great wins, but they will if they run the table. Good afternoon.
Yeah, certainly. And I know a lot of people are throwing that Wisconsin win out the window, but when you look at how good Wisconsin was playing going into that game and the weather circumstances, that was a really big win. And one thing that a couple staff members told me was, look at how Justin Fields played in the second half of that game. That was a game where they were going to be forced to have him run the ball, and they didn't want to do that. And he was able to throw in windy, rainy, cold weather environment, and he did well. They boat raced Wisconsin in the second half, and that's when I think a lot of people around the country started to think that Ohio State was the most complete team in the country. But it all changes this weekend. I mean, Penn State is arguably the best team they will face to this point. They have Michigan next week. But the thing about this Penn State game is this could be the first time that this team faces real adversity. They haven't had to play in the fourth quarter to win yet. And, Ryan Day brought that up at his press conference yesterday and said, yeah, we're going to have to put this game on Justin Fields' back. And he hasn't had to do that since his junior year of high school. His teams have been so good, and obviously he was hurt during his senior year of high school. So when he was asked about that, he said, oh yeah, I'm always ready for that. But it's easier to say that you are compared to playing it. So we'll see what happens Saturday, but these guys are locked and loaded. They are very cliche with everything, 1-0 mentality. They're not worried about Michigan right now, but they know what's in front of them.
Yeah, and let me – when people ask the question, and I've heard it all morning here, LSU's number one, Ohio State's number two, but it seems like Ohio State's the more complete team, even though LSU clearly has the better resume. How do you do a comparison test right now, or can you, Ed?
I mean, you have to get both those teams to play each other, right? Like, I got into Twitter battles about this all last week. Until you have a system where every single team in the country can play each other, which is never going to happen, you're never going to really know. So this is the best that we've got. And I agree with you. I heard you on Get Up this morning. I think Ohio State is the most complete team in the country. I think that LSU right now has the most exciting offense because we haven't seen it at LSU. And that's not to take anything away from him. Joe Burrow is playing lights out. I mean, he's number one on everybody's Heisman list. He should be. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is running the ball out of his mind. And people didn't even think that he was going to be the starter this season for them. The offensive line, which was the biggest question mark coming into the season, is playing better than people on that staff expected. So I think if we had seen this from LSU before, we wouldn't be as giddy about it. But because they made such an overnight transformation, people are more excited about it. And that's why I think that you're hearing so much blowback about, well, how come LSU isn't number one? Look at their resume. Yes, they have a great resume, but that defense has a lot of issues. And when you play Ole Miss, and I understand emotions, it's a rivalry game. I grew up in Oxford. I understand what that game means to Ole Miss players and Ole Miss fans. But you can't let a team that bad run on you all night long. And I think that that's something that other teams are looking at when they potentially face LSU this season.
Talking to Ed Ashoff. Ed, you spent a lot of time on the West Coast, so you know the Pac-12 better than we do. Start getting all these comparisons between Oregon, Utah, and they're really kind of one team right now in relation to the college football playoff versus Alabama. Is there any way, or can you compare and contrast?
I think it's tough because Utah's schedule is the worst of all of them. I think that they are an incredibly complete team. Their defense is one of the best in the country. Tyler Huntley is playing better than people expected. He gained 25 pounds over the offseason, and it's working to his advantage. I mean, this offense has finally got some explosive pieces to it, something that is kind of unheard of. It's sort of like LSU, really, with Utah. But when you look at Oregon, people are going to point to that Auburn loss. If they had won that, there's no comparison. I mean, they're in if they were on the table. But if they don't have Auburn on that schedule, win or lose, they don't have much of a schedule either. The Pac-12 has been good. It hasn't been great. I think that there's outside perception that certainly hurts the league, and that's going to trickle into what the committee thinks at the end of the day if Oregon wins the Pac-12. But the improvement that this team has made from the middle point of the season to now has been very evident, especially on offense. Justin Herbert hasn't been that number one draft pick, lights out quarterback every single week, but he's starting to get his rhythm. He's starting to get his flow. And this is a different team. I mean, Mario Cristobal wants to be that SEC power run team. We're seeing it. They're grinding teams out, and now they're putting a little bit more explosiveness with Juwan Johnson coming back at receiver. So I think it's tough to leave Oregon out, but I do understand if Alabama, with Mac Jones at quarterback, blows out Auburn or beats Auburn on the road, that's big, and that's going to overshadow what Oregon has done because of that head-to-head matchup.
Ed, I know you go to practice. Thanks. Come back soon. Always great to have you on. Ed Ashoff.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us from Columbus. This time of the year, you never know what kind of story will pop up, and the name Houston Nutt surfaced earlier today on our friend David Basil's radio show in Arkansas. He said that he had been contacted by an administrator at Arkansas to gauge his interest. Houston Nutt was fired at Arkansas in 2007. He went to Ole Miss where things did not go well, and now he's a commentator for CBS. We'll take a short break. Back with more of your calls after this. And frankly, it's more fun to watch the end of a game on Twitter than it is from one of the networks.
Can you say that one more time, Paul? I don't think I heard.
I'll say because it's first of all, it's a little bit faster. Not faster than the game itself.
I think it starts with just understanding again how powerful the tool is.
Right.
Just being mindful. Twitter is a reflection of humanity, for better or worse. So if I see you on the street and we disagree, we should be able to have a civil conversation about it. And the reality is sometimes that isn't the case. And in those instances, like, we are just laser focused on making sure that we police against those, and we just make it a safe experience. But yeah, I routinely in my team, I've got a gentleman named David Herman on my team who works with all college programs, and a young lady named Brittany Cranston who works with all talent. We sit in rooms with teams, with players, with agents, with athletes, and we say, here are do's and don'ts.
Right.
Twitter can be an amazing tool, amazing platform for you to build your brand, for you to develop brand advocates and affinities with your fans. But you just got to be smart, just like with anything else. So we really do make sure that we're in the trenches, and we handhold people to make sure that they're using it in the right ways. Ultimately, we realize that we talked about this earlier, right? Like the sports experience is changing. It went from reading the newspaper the morning after to consuming it in real time. But I think the next iteration of sports fandom and digital and social, Twitter specifically, is creating deep, immersive formats. What if you can tweet to dictate a camera angle in a game? What if you can tweet and have your tweet surfaced contextually within a live game experience? Those are the types of things, deep participatory fan engagement plays that we're thinking about. Obviously, VR and AR will play a really important role in those types of things moving forward. But people want immediate gratification. People want to dictate what they're seeing on the screen. And we've got a show called Countdown to Game Day. My Bulldogs, Maria Taylor and Dave Pollock, actually have a show that's live streamed on Twitter. We also have a show called Rankings Reaction, because we know once those college football playoff rankings get released, there's going to be a lot of hot takes, and that conversation unfolds on our platform. So we work hand in hand with partners such as ESPN and others in the space to continue to generate that dialogue, to make sure that when you hop into Twitter, it's a fun sports experience.